All right, Omega listeners, it is now time for Queen Bee Frequency here today on Omega Radio. We invite you to stay locked in, stay tuned in as we get ready to turn you over to your host, Tikea Bowers, for today's episode of Queen Bee Frequency. Stick and stay with us. Don't touch that dial.
Queen, it's your girl Tikea. Welcome to Queen Bee Frequency on Omega Radio, your space for growth and becoming her. Tune in Wednesdays at 10 a.m., where energy shifts and queens rise. Hey queens, welcome back to Queen Bee Frequency, where energy shifts and queens rise. I'm your girl Tikea, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is very, very challenging, especially for women in their 30s, 40s, any age group really. But leaving your 20s and entering your 30s is a whole new ball game, and discovering who you are and just feeling the shifts of life can be very challenging, especially when you're navigating friendships. So this is for the woman who's feeling disconnected lately, feeling like they're outgrowing certain circles, certain spaces, and they feel like something is wrong with them, but not even realizing that it's just them shifting into a new version of themselves and letting go of spaces that no longer serve them. Growth changes your frequency. And that's something that I really want to drive home. You have to give yourself grace, because as you grow, as we've talked about before, things are going to change. And sometimes the things that change tend to be the people that you love, the spaces that you love. But today we're going to talk about friendship and how hard it is to navigate friendship when you're growing. So in your 20s, you'll find that friendship can be more of like a fun, you go out, you have conversations, you struggle together with small things, you travel, you trauma bond. There's so many things that happen in your 20s. It just feels like magic, like you're always having fun with your friends. And then when you enter your 30s, you're looking for like a higher level of friendship. You're looking for more depth, more security, more understanding. And of course, you're entering a phase of your life where you're more busy. So you're looking for friendships or friends that understand this new phase of your life. And that's often hard because sometimes your friends are not evolving with you. Not saying that they're not, on an upward spiral, but sometimes they just aren't where you're at, and it's hard to connect. So let's get into it. Healing really changes what you tolerate, and that's something that was really hard for me. Entering my 30s, I had a very large friend group. And as time progressed, people started having babies, getting married, and I was kind of slow to the party. I didn't get married right away. I got married in my mid 30s, and most of my friends already had children. They already were doing things that I'd hoped to accomplish, but it definitely changed the dynamic of our friendship. And it was really, really hard for me to understand why we still can do the same things, even though, life has changed, you have children, not understanding that as you take on bigger responsibilities. As you grow, you're going to have less and less time. And I heard a quote that said, "A busy friend is a good friend." And as I'm entering my late 30s, I see that as like huge because I'm so busy. And there are times where I feel like, man, am I going to lose my friendships if I don't pick up as soon as they call or answer their text messages? There's sometimes I don't even answer their text for like a week. And that can be very challenging for a friendship. But having those friends that understand where you are in life is very important. But then there are those friendships that kind of fall by the wayside and you never fully recover from the growth and the elevation that you guys have been through. But as your nervous system starts to reject those old patterns that you went through, like I said, in your 20s, you trauma bonded, you did, your friends know way more about you sometimes than your spouse does. And that is the truth. So as you get older, some of us become more secretive. We become more closed off. We keep things closer to our hearts. And that can be very hard for some friendships because they feel like you are, being secretive, or they just don't understand where you are. So before, I remember I used to sit on the phone with my friends all the time, and we would just talk for hours and hours. And there are days that I miss that. But I remember that I'm entering a phase of my life where time is very precious. So most of my days are spent working and building and just trying to go on an upward spiral in my life. And I have those friendships now that understand that Takia is busy. She has a lot going on, and we both can, sit down and plan things out together 3 months away, and understand that we still love each other, but we just don't have the time like we used to. We're in our 30s now. We have mortgages to pay. We have real life responsibilities. And like I said, a lot of my friends had children earlier than I did. So just being in that headspace, and understanding that we grow, we evolve, and sometimes those friendships that we thought we'd have forever, we don't have them. And that's something, again, that I went through in my mid 30s. Losing those connections hurt. Grieving a friendship is seriously like grieving a death. I remember a few years ago, I had to let a friendship go. And that was really, really challenging for me. But I had to remember that I had to remember my worth. That was the problem. A lot of us are sitting in friendships or relationships that no longer serve us because we're trying to hold on to them, for dear life. We see the crash ahead, and it's like we don't want to let go because we're so used to those old patterns and the familiar spaces, that we don't trust that our tribe is actually coming. So in that friendship that I had to let go, it hurt so badly, but I held on longer than I should. And of course, the longer you hold on, the worse it becomes. And you start accepting things like sly remarks, um, inside jokes that only they know, but they're about you, silent competitions, just a lot of things that I feel women go through. And I talk to my husband about this all the time, and he thinks it's funny. He thinks, oh, come on, like it's not that serious. But he doesn't understand that women are filled with hormones, and we're emotional. We're one day we're up, one day we're down, and then when we're on our cycle, it becomes even more. And then when we sync up our cycle, especially when you're super close to your friends. So there's a lot of things happening, and I just feel like you need to know your worth. And that's something that I lacked back then, which is what kept me in a lot of situations that I no longer belonged in. And the longer I stayed, the harder it became on me, because you don't realize that sometimes the reason why we have to separate is because sometimes people keep you small. And as you grow, they cannot take the growth, especially if they're not growing with you. It becomes very hard for them to watch you grow. And then it becomes kind of like a sabotage thing silently. They don't even realize that they're doing it. It's just that they miss the old version of you that played small, didn't have everything together, allowed those sly comments, and now you know who you are. So you're no longer accepting those things. So the relationship becomes toxic. So as soon as you start feeling those vibes, it's okay. Let the relationship go. I had to trust that God was sending my tribe. It didn't matter if it was 50 girls or 10 girls or 5 girls. I wanted to have friendships that felt like sisterhoods, because I don't know if I ever told you this, but I'm my mom's youngest child. My mom had me at like 42, and my older siblings are about 25 years older than me. So I never really had that sisterly bond. My sisters were more like my mom. So my friends were like everything to me. They were my family. And I remember my mom used to say, "Oh, you do everything for your friends, your friends, your friends. It's always your friends." And it's so funny because now when I first started dating my husband, he'd be like, "Why do you have so many friends?" It's so crazy to me. I've never seen someone with so many friends, and he didn't understand that that sisterly bond was something that I was craving. So on top of that, I was accepting certain behaviors that I did not deserve. And learning my worth and understanding who I am allowed me to take a step back and look at those friendships and realize that I was worth way more than what I was being served. So I had to let a lot of those friendships go. And that was really hard for me. And to be honest, we're not perfect. There are people in our lives that are elevating that we can't go with. And it's the same thing with us. Some of us are elevating to new heights, and some people we have to leave behind, because we have to understand that people are in our lives for a reason, a season, not always a lifetime. And something that I read a few years back is, when you're on a journey, especially when you have a major calling on your life, you're going to meet people. It's like an intersection. You're going to meet people that nudge you to where you're supposed to go, right? And then you're going to meet people that are going to hold your hand throughout the journey. And then you're going to meet people that are going to let your hand go midway. And it's just an understanding that they were just there to guide you through. But it's those connections that we form and those bonds that we form, we call them kind of like soul ties, where we feel like this person has to be in our life forever. This is a forever friendship. And honestly, a lot of the people that we have in our life, they're not going to be there for as long as you think they're going to be. And that's the hard pill to swallow. There's a lot of times where I found myself dimming my light to fit in to a group that did not serve me. And it doesn't mean that you're better than them. That's not what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just aren't yoked. You're just not on the same path. And some people are just not for you. Like, I remember my mom would always say that you have to choose your friends wisely, because sometimes, and of course, your mom always sees everything. Every time I brought a friend home, she would overanalyze them and say, listen, let me tell you something. This friendship right here, it's becoming toxic, or this isn't for you. I don't see this. And I wouldn't listen, of course. And it's like I had to touch the stove and feel the fire and get burned in order to realize my worth and realize that it was time to let that bond go. It's okay, because you're clearing space for what is supposed to be there. Outgrowing old circles is normal. It's totally normal. I have friends since middle school. I have friends since preschool. And to be honest with you, a lot of those friends are my sisters and my brothers. But a lot of those friendships that I had in those groups, in those close knit groups, I had to let go. So now when I look back at those times and I look at my life, I love it when you sit down and you reflect on your life and God starts to show you why he did what he did. That is such an aha moment, and it makes you feel like, wow, I'm glad I listened. I'm glad I did. I followed your lead, God, because that was the wrong path. That path would have led me to death. That path would have led me to something that I didn't deserve. So I'm glad that I listened and let go. I trust God so much. Every day I say, God, I'm in a phase of my life where I feel like you're building me, you're molding me, and I feel sometimes where that sense of loneliness. And something my husband would always say to me, he's like, you realize you have yourself, right? And I would say to him, I need my community. And he's like, yeah, community is great. But he's like, you need to be comfortable with yourself. And it used to make me so angry in that phase, because I felt myself growing, but I also felt myself trying to hold myself back because I was so afraid of letting go of the familiar. And now in this phase of my life, my circle has gotten very small. And sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, I would love to just call my friend and spill and like, say all of these things. But the older I get, I'm realizing I have to keep things close to my heart, because it's not that people are evil. This is something that I want you to understand. It's not that people are evil now. It's just that people project onto you. and they will keep you small with their projections. And what I mean by that is if someone has an insecurity, for instance, if you just got this new job and you're doing great, you're very successful, and I can compare it to a woman, or you met this great man and you're getting married and your girlfriend isn't on the same path as you, sometimes it can become very, very toxic because she feels, she's projecting onto you. It's not that what you're doing is wrong. It's just that you're doing something that she wishes she could do. So because of that, you start to get the sly remarks, the under, the compliments that aren't really the backhanded compliments. And those things hurt and they keep you small because those are people that you know, love, and trust. Right? So every single time you're around them, you feel this heaviness, this weight, and it's like you take on their insecurities. You don't feel that way about yourself. You feel great about yourself. But because they're projecting onto you, you tend to keep yourself small, and it's sometimes to appease them. So, empaths, especially people that absorb energy, there are a lot of people in this world that they sit in a room and they absorb people's energy. And I'm one of those people. So, feeling everyone's emotions and, you know, realizing that, man, I'm in a room that I don't belong in. It's very uncomfortable in here. And that's something in my mid to late 30s that I started to realize. And I had to shed. I call it shedding. I had to shed a lot of dead weight and I had to get rid of some of the people. Even now, I notice things and I silently clock it. And I'm just like, yeah, it's time to go, because for my own peace of mind. So Amos 3:3, I love this scripture because it says, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" And it doesn't mean that you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you're perfect and they're not. What it means is that sometimes growth makes you go in different directions. And sometimes we try to force the connection. And that's where the heaviness comes in. And it's not right. It's not for you. So you have to let it go. Let it go. Trust me, Queen. Your tribe is coming. Do you trust God? Trust me, your people are coming. There are nights where you might feel very lonely, like, man, I wish I had a friend to go out with. Look at all these people on Instagram. They're going out, they're having a good time with their big group of girlfriends. Where are my friends? Trust me, God is protecting you. He is keeping you, he is molding you, he is protecting you and building you up for what you prayed for. So remember that. You can't take everyone with you. You have to let things go. Not everyone is your friend. And sometimes, especially when you're in certain positions, especially now for me, I know that I can't be friends with everybody. I know that I can't be around everybody. And that's hard for me because I feel it in my spirit. I feel it in my soul. Like I can't be around just anybody. I have to have discernment. And that's something I pray to God for a lot. Please give me discernment. Please allow me to see what is not right around me because I want to make sure that I travel the road that's best traveled for me. Okay. And I want to make sure that I make it to the destination safely. And I want to make it to the right place, the place that I prayed for. So sometimes you just got to let go. And sometimes you got to travel the road alone. So, before we go, I wanted to tell you guys about this amazing book because we're headed into the Queen's Library. This book is called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, and it's perfect for this topic. It's by Nedra Glover Tawwab, and it talks about boundaries, friendships, letting go, and protecting your peace. And I found this book, and it's, of course, on my reading list because I told you I have like a million books on my reading list for the summer. But it helps you to realize that boundaries are number one, especially when you're forming new friendships. You want to make sure that you don't call everybody your friend. And that's something else my husband would always tell me. He's like, everybody's your friend. He's like, no, try using words like coworker. Um, don't use friend all the time or best friend all the time too loosely. You've got to be very careful with that. So, Queens, make sure you find books that expand your mind. Even if you're just sitting down and reading a book that's, a fictional book, make sure it's something that expands your mind and helps you to grow in the direction that you hope to grow. But Queen, in closing, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are evolving and your tribe is coming. As much as you may feel lonely at times, remember, God is building you. He is molding you into who you are becoming. And sometimes too much company will stunt your growth. Too many people around you will cloud your judgment. You have to trust him that if he set you apart and he's pulling you away from people, trust him and let go. Sometimes there's danger that you do not see. So you have to make sure that you guard your heart, especially from evil eyes. Remember that. Protect yourself, Queen. Same time, same frequency next Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Omega Radio. Hey, Queen. It's your girl, Tikea. Welcome to Queen Bee Frequency on Omega Radio, your space for growth and becoming her. Tune in Wednesdays at 10 a.m., where energy shifts and queens rise.
All right, Omega listeners, you were just tuned into Queen Bee Frequency here today. We trust that you enjoyed today's episode and that you'll tune back in next week, Wednesday, at the same time, right here on Omega Radio. Stick and stay with us. We have more locked in for you right here on this station.
It's the #1 radio in the atmosphere, here, there, and everywhere. Omega Radio.
Join Omega Church and Omega